Hi, I'm Catherine from Literacy Volunteers, and this is video number 4 in our series on the 100 civics questions. Session 4 focuses on creating our country and includes 9 questions. When we were no longer colonies, we declared our independence. We needed to decide what should our new country be like. What kind of government should the new country have? What does the Constitution do? Our Constitution explains what our government should be like. A constitution is a document that explains how the government will work. For example, in our Constitution, Section 1 says, the laws will be made by a group of people from each state, and explains about that. Section 2 says there will be a president who is in charge of the government programs, and explains about the job of the president. Section 3 says there will be courts and explains about courts and judges. What does the Constitution do? It sets up the government. Now you practice. What does the Constitution do? Good. It sets up the government. What happened at the Constitutional Convention? A convention is another word for a meeting. So what happened at the meeting called the Constitutional Convention? The Constitution was written. What happened at the Constitutional Convention? You practice. Good. The Constitution was written. When was the Constitution written? In 1787. You practice. When was the Constitution written? 1787. Good. Each of the 13 states had to vote on whether they wanted the new Constitution to be the plan for how our government will work. So the Constitution was sent to each of the 13 states, and the government of each state, the people in the government of each state had to vote. Do you want the new Constitution to be the plan for how our government will work? Yes or no? The Federalist Papers supported the passage of the U.S. Constitution. Name one of the writers. The Federalist Papers was a set of articles or essays, things you could read in a newspaper, or sometimes they put them together in a small book. And the people who wrote them were writing down all the reasons why they thought people should vote yes. The Constitution is a good plan. The writers of the Federalist Papers wanted to convince people in all 13 states to vote yes on the Constitution. Yes, the Constitution should be our plan for how the government should work. So again, the Federalist Papers supported passage of the U.S. Constitution. Name one of the writers. One of the writers was named Hamilton. His full name was Alexander Hamilton, but all you need to know is Hamilton. Now you practice. The Federalist Papers supported the passage of the U.S. Constitution. Name one of the writers. Good. Hamilton. There were 13 original states. Name 3. So remember, there had been 13 original colonies. Once we declared our independence from England and said we are now our own country, those 13 areas are not colonies anymore. Now they are states and part of the United States. So when we need to name 3 of them, we can name any of the 3 from this list of 13. There were 13 original states. Name 3. The 3 I'm going to have us practice are New York, New Jersey, and Virginia. Now you practice. There were 13 original states. Name 3. New York, New Jersey, and Virginia. Good. Who was the first president? George Washington is the name of our first president. Now you practice. Who was the first president? Good. George Washington. You could also just say Washington. Who is the father of our country? The answer is also George Washington. George Washington had 2 very important roles. One was that he was our first president, but before that, when we declared our independence from England, the King of England did not want us to be a separate country, so there was a war. They fought a war to become an independent country, and George Washington was the leader of the military for the United States to help the United States really become free from England. So he was the first general of our military, and he was our first president. So we call him the father of our country. Now you practice. Who is the father of our country? George Washington. Good. What is one thing Benjamin Franklin is famous for? Benjamin Franklin was another of the important leaders during the very beginning of our country. He was one of the people who helped Thomas Jefferson with the Declaration of Independence. He was the oldest person at the Constitutional Convention. The yellow circles on these pictures show Benjamin Franklin at those 2 very important events. But one thing that he did all on his own was he started the first free libraries. So just like today, we can go to the public library and we can look at and borrow books for free. We don't have to pay any money. The first free libraries in the United States were started by Benjamin Franklin. So what is one thing Benjamin Franklin is famous for? He started the first free libraries. Now you practice. What is one thing Benjamin Franklin is famous for? He started the first free libraries. Good. What group of people was taken to America and sold as slaves? A slave is a person who is owned by another person, just like a person can own a car or a person can own a house. A slave is where a person owns another person. So a slave is a person who is owned by another person and has to do what they say and work for no money. 10 million people were brought from Africa to North and South America to work as slaves. About 500,000 people were brought to the United States to work as slaves. So even though our country, the idea was that everyone is created equal and that we will all have freedom, but for many, many years in the early part of our history, that was not true for the people who were brought from Africa to be slaves. What group of people was taken to America and sold as slaves? People from Africa. Now you practice. What group of people was taken to America and sold as slaves? People from Africa. Good. Here are all of the questions that we covered today. You can pause here to practice all 9 questions. If you are using the textbook at home, you can also practice from chapter or section 4. The questions that we did today, almost all of today's questions are from section 4. See you next time.